Here we have Keith Olbermann doing something called the Resistance. Now, the first thing that I notice is that his symbology is an American flag with the Resistance pinned to it with a safety pin. The safety pin has been adopted as some sort of symbol by people who are anti-Trump.
This evil is unfolding, like it or not. It can unfold and you can lie there, or it can unfold and you can resist.
Now, Keith says this evil is unfolding. So he is choosing to use a descriptive word, evil, to describe something that may or may not be evil, depending upon your perspective. This is not a factual description. This is a subjective description put on Donald Trump being president. He's saying Donald Trump being president is evil. The idea of Donald Trump being evil is subjective. If you ask Donald Trump's kids, is he evil? Is Donald Trump evil? Is Donald Trump's presidency evil? They would probably say no. And there's also millions of people that voted for Donald Trump that might not think that Donald Trump's presidency is evil. This is why it is a subjective comment with no basis in reality other than Keith's opinion.
Give him a chance, because we're all supposed to pretend that this is a normal man and that was a normal election. Because we're all supposed to forget that the Russians interfered with the election and the involvement of the FBI at minimum affected the outcome.
Here Keith says, we're supposed to pretend that Donald Trump is a normal man and that this was a normal election. Well, Keith, no, we're not. Everybody who saw this election knows that we had two people running in it. Donald Trump, who is not a normal man. Donald Trump is a billionaire. Most normal men are not billionaires, okay? And Donald Trump, and I could go on and on about how Donald Trump is not a quote-unquote normal man. You should realize that, Keith. Most people do. And in terms of the normal election, we had Donald Trump, not a normal man, running against Hillary Clinton, not a normal woman. Hillary Clinton was the former First Lady. Hillary Clinton was a senator, a Secretary of State. Most normal women do not achieve those types of positions. Very few women achieve those type of positions. Those are very not normal positions. So when you have an election with a not normal man in it, Donald Trump, and a not normal woman in it, Hillary Clinton, then of course it's going to be a not normal election, Keith. We don't have to pretend anything. Now, in terms of the Russians interfering with the election, there's no proof at all of the Russians interfering in the election. They made it known that they preferred Donald Trump. But if you're implying, like a lot of people are implying, that Russians hacked the DNC, that Russians hacked different sources and released them, we have no proof of that. If our intelligence agencies had a foreign country hacking our system, they would have been happy to present the evidence. They would have been happy to bring them to court. They would have been happy to chastise them in an international at the UN. They would have been happy to do that. There's no proof of that. So once again, Keith is throwing around this idea, the Russians, when there's no proof of it.
Because we're all going to follow the Washington Post and call them populists instead of white supremacists, even though they are white supremacists.
Now Keith baits you into calling Trump's administration white supremacist by saying, because we're all going to call them populists, not white supremacists. And they are white supremacists. So what he's doing there is he's setting up this argument. He's telling you, call them populists. That's what the Washington Post wants to do. That's what they want you to do. But they're white supremacists. So what are you going to do, person? What are you going to do, person listening? Resistance. Are you going to call them populists? Or are you going to call them white supremacists? When I'm clearly saying they are white supremacists. Now, Keith, I don't know where you get your information about white supremacists. But if Donald Trump is a white supremacist, he's the weakest white supremacist I've ever seen. If you listen to white supremacist rhetoric, skinhead rhetoric, Nazi youth rhetoric, KKK rhetoric that are true white supremacists, Donald Trump has none of it. Donald Trump does not spew any of the white supremacist rhetoric that is popular among white supremacist groups. So, Keith, you need to do your homework on white supremacist rhetoric and how white supremacists speak to white supremacists.
And I tell you, any nigger that jumps out in front of my truck, he's just committing suicides, all hell I know.
Give him a chance. All we are saying is give fascism a chance.
Give fascism a chance. I'm really struggling to try to understand Keith's historical basis for even implying that fascism can exist in America with the American system that has been put in place by our forefathers that created it. The forefathers created this system specifically so it would not be ruled by one person, by one view, by one king, by one dictator, by one fascist. The whole system is broken up into parts to keep each part in check. So to imply that any president of our country could be fascist is extremely reckless, and it shows ignorance, in my opinion. It shows complete ignorance of the workings of our system. To imply that somebody could be a fascist in our system, it boggles my mind that you could be that uneducated. And further, that you're spreading this idea to other people that there could be a fascist in our system. It is literally impossible for anyone within the United States government to be a fascist and practice fascism. Our system was specifically created to make sure that one king, the English king in our case, when we came over here running away from the English king, the people who made our system, the forefathers, the founding fathers, made sure they created a system that could not be ruled by a king, by a fascist dictator.
This is not America's president either, and so we will resist.
This is not America's president either. Once again, this shows Keith's ignorance as to the actual working of the political system in America. In America, when you are voted in to be President of the United States of America, you are, by definition, America's president. Keith, that's exactly who the President of the United States of America is. America's president. He's not president of Russia. He's not president of Germany. He's not president of England. He is America's president.
This Trump is a profoundly and proactively self-destructive individual.
Once again, Keith Olbermann is showing his complete ignorance of certain concepts by saying Donald Trump is profoundly and proactively self-destructive. Well, Keith, Jim Morrison was self-destructive. Amy Winehouse was self-destructive. Donald Trump is the farthest thing from self-destructive. First and foremost, he's 70 years old. Self-destructive individuals often die young. That's what self-destruction causes, the destruction of the self, including your body. Donald Trump has built an empire, a billion-dollar empire. Self-destructive individuals don't build things, they destroy them, including themselves, and they destroy things around them by destroying themselves. Donald Trump has a family, an extended family. Self-destructive individuals destroy themselves and those around them. As stated, look at Jim Morrison. He is a perfect example of a self-destructive individual who garnered fame, who garnered money, who garnered public admiration. And what did he do? He died at a very young age through self-destructive means. I can't tell here if Keith Olbermann is dumb, really that dumb, to call someone like Donald Trump self-destructive, or he's so overtaken with his own anger about whatever he perceives the situation to be that he can no longer make rational statements. But either way, Donald Trump is not self-destructive.
Who refused to say whether he would honor the outcome of that election? Why, the president-elect did.
Who refused to say he would not honor the outcome of that election? Well, I was watching the debate where he said, I don't know, we'll wait and see. He merely said, we'll wait and see. I'm going to leave you in suspense and I'll give you an answer later. So he did not say he would not honor the outcome of the election. He did not say that. There were no words that came out of Donald Trump's mouth that said he would not honor the outcome of the election. He said, we will see. I will give you an answer later. I will leave you in suspense.
Resist. Peace.
My favorite part, though, is the ending where Keith, after he has talked about many actions, protesting, marching on Washington, marching on the Trump Tower, marching in front of Trump hotels, totally delegitimizing the president. After he talks about action after action after action that will cause turmoil, that will cause trouble, that will cause unrest, that will cause being unsettled, that will cause possibly violence. He has the nerve to say peace, like he stands for peace. He did nothing but talk about actions. He did nothing but talk about what we should do to resist, which are actions, and then turns around and says, peace, and holds his hand up and says, peace. Yeah, right, Keith. I'm John Dankman for Media Analysis, hoping you think for yourself.